What's up? Welcome to another edition of Primarch Purpose. This is a series in which I go in reverse Legion order, giving you my thoughts on what I think the ultimate endgame goal might have been for the Primarch project by the Emperor, right? He handcrafted the 20 individual Primarchs, of which we know a total of 18, with specific purposes in mind, changes, tweaks, and the like in mind when he did it, right? For such an intensive project, you're not going to do it willy-nilly. So there's definitely a goal here. We never get to see it happen because the Horus Heresy happens. So for the purposes of this series, I'm going in reverse Legion order, and we're going to have a bit of a what-if setting that we're going to be talking about the Primarch Purpose topic in. So that setting is simply this. The Emperor is alive and well, leading an Imperial truth-driven Imperium following a successful Great Crusade. The legions are still legions led by their Primarchs who are also alive and loyal. This means there are several key differences to the Imperium at large. There's no ecclesiarchy as we know it, and none of its forces, because there's no need for it in an Imperial truth-driven Imperium. The Inquisition and its forces don't exist either the way we know it. Instead, those kind of roles will be taken over by certain legions. So with that said, it's not a lot of changes, but they're big, massive changes for the Imperium. Now, we still have the Xenos forces we know. Just because the Great Crusade is over doesn't mean humanity covers the galaxy from one end to the other. No, it just means the Crusade is over and now it's on to the next phase of expansion or consolidation or whatever. So we're still going to have all the Xenos forces we know of in Codex form and everything. We're still going to have Chaos Demons as a threat. The Warping Chaos is still very much a threat, with plenty of Traitor Guardsmen succumbing to it, even Dark Mechanicum and the like. But just no Chaos Marines, basically, because of that. It's still legions, and they're loyal to the Emperor with their Primarchs. So that's basically the changes that we're looking at the Primarchs in. And we're looking at it all the way into 40k timeline stuff. So, 41st Millennium timeline stuff. So let's have some fun with it. So up on the chopping block this time is the 5th Legion's Primarch. I'm only going to attempt his first name once. I'm just going to call him the Khan, basically, or the Great Khan. I'll interchange that. Or Kagan, I'll go through those. But I think it's Jaghatai or Jaghatai. I don't know. Khan. I don't know how to really pronounce that, to be honest with you. So the Khan, as we'll call him, or the Great Khan, or Kagan, however you want to do it, I'll just probably interchange those, is the Primarch of the White Scars Legion. Now, this is a legion that doesn't have as much fluff written for them as other legions do, for sure, right? Sons of Horus, plenty of stuff on it. The Space Souls, a lot of stuff on it. Rogodoran gets a good amount of stuff on his stuff too. Now, with the Horus Heresy series from Forge World out, the book that they're in is out, so we got a good bumping of fluff for the White Scars, but during this time period especially, it's helpful. So, with that said, it's not like there was nothing written on them. It was just lessened in comparison to other legions. We did have the Khan, come to blows against some. I believe he came to blows against Angron at one point, or Angron and Mortarion, or Mortarion and then somebody else. Basically, he came to blows against a lot of stuff, more than we probably think. He is a Primarch, actually, who was close with Magnus the Red, so that's pretty interesting. Not something you often hear. So anyways, with that being the case, let's just look at what the Khan might be all about. So the Khan is very much an independent style of Primarch. This is one of the legions, one of the Primarchs that would definitely be doing a lot of independent actions in the 41st timeline if this was the actual setting we were looking at. Wouldn't have much time at all amongst Terra. He'd probably be constantly prowling the stars, as his legion did during the Great Crusade. And it's not like recon was all they did, but they definitely were the legion that made first contact probably the most when it came to the Great Crusade, and they would be continually acting to push the forefront of humanity even post Crusade in the 40K timeline. Him and his legion are very self-sufficient, hard-hitting, fast-hitting, and as we know in standard fluff, he disappears in a large warp rift, pursuing the Dark Eldar. So I'm not saying it's going to happen here, but what I am saying is that we have a Primarch who is very adept at dealing, counterattacks against hard-hitting yet fast and rapidly redeploying forces, and even pursuing and scouting out things. This would be the force, for example, that would probably be responsible if we're going to have the Imperial Webway project be some type of success and actually happen. Him and his legion will probably be the ones to map out a lot of the unknown sections they have access to. That's the style of forces they are. So the Kagan, is very much about that he likes open warfare. He's not one for politicking and stagnation, really. Speed is life, movement is key. That's what he's all about. And as a result, the ending of the Great Crusade would definitely be something that would be sad to him and kind of heavy in his heart, because of all the Primarchs, the Great Crusade was most to his liking, constantly pushing the forefronts and exploring and going forward and hunting out the enemy and running them to the ground in the dark recesses of the galaxy, bringing the Emperor's light, you could say, to it, and being that forefront force. So, with that said, he lives for the hunt and the chase, not for parade grounds or politicking or the stratagem meetings or anything like that. He doesn't manage a massive chunk of space like the Ultramarines do, for example, with their Primarch. He and his legion just went out there like an arrow shot into the dark to meet the enemy and hunt. As a result, post-Crusade situation now, in this setting, they would be one of the most active legions and one of the most active Primarchs to constantly be either on patrols, seeking out things, hunting down Eldar Corsairs would be something they would be particularly adept at, whether it's Eldar or Dark Eldar or just pirate fleets. Running the enemy to ground on the plains of battle with their bikes and with their rapidly deploying foot soldiers and everything. That is where they're going to be most at home. And it would be a tall order and a heavy order to recall them to Terra, for example, for a meeting with the Emperor or whatever. And it's important to understand that they're not berserkers. They're not necessarily lawless or crazed fighters. While they laugh while they kill, yes, they have enjoyment in what they do, but the Khan believes in discipline and believes that, in all things discipline. So discipline doesn't mean you can't have fun, I guess, or enjoy what you're doing, right, in his eyes, but they're not going to go berserk. They don't go berserk. They don't lose themselves. They very much are in control of themselves and find what they do to their liking and are very good at it. So we're looking at a Primarch, really, that is going to be still carrying out very similar actions as he did during the Great Crusade. A Primarch really kind of ill at ease to being still and stagnant in his eyes, right? Probably one to send a missive back versus showing up himself, and would take a tall order to show up. Probably one that the forces like Leman Russ would have to go and bring to heel, not in a direct violent confrontation and all, but to say, hey, yo, we need you over here for something. the Emperor needs to see you now for reasons. So it's definitely one of those forces that, when acting ideally, you hardly ever see him in the bulk of the Imperium at large. Now, if his skills and his legion's particular adept skills at their lightning war is required, let's say in one of the more core realms of the Imperium, because of a orc speed freak armada or something, or a Eldar Corsair raid of massive proportions, then yeah, they're gonna show up, they're gonna do what they do, and they're going to be good at it. But by and large, we're gonna find them on the forefront of the, being the pioneers companies of old, if you will, that they were, of the Imperium's borders, trying to perhaps push it forward little by little, or B, secure it and strike out against the enemy with preemptive strikes to kind of keep the enemy at bay. They would be the ones, for example, to make first contact for sure with Tyranids when they would show up. They would be the ones that would just probably be second to the Ultramarines for being adept Tyranid hunters, right? Just because that was a weird way of saying all that, but just because they make first contact doesn't mean they need to be the ones that now are dealing with the first Tyrannic War. We're still leave that with the Ultramarines, give that their thing, but they'll be the ones perhaps to make first contact with something that would turn out to be the Tyranids, right? Maybe their first contact is the reason why the Tyranids suddenly shifted to the Macragge sector of space or whatever. So, anyways, they would make first contact there. If the Silent King and his forces, they went out beyond the galaxy, eventually come back, they would probably, if they're in that sector of space, be able to make contact with that as well. Not that they would prove to do anything, it would just be like, hey, there's this massive fleet coming back out of nowhere, what's the deal? But generally, first contact comes to the White Scars for a lot of things, especially on the forefront, on the frontier, which is where they would prefer to be, in the wilds. So, in a sense, they would actively be border security for the Imperium at large, with their actions. Be the first to deal with things beyond the Imperium scope, such as perhaps a massive Orc Wa coming in out of nowhere, or a massive Corsair fleet, or another Splinter's tendril of Tyranids, or what have you. They would be one of the ones for sure to make contact. And perhaps deliberately too. There are a couple other legions that would be out there too, in self-action, that could make first contact, but the White Scars would probably not be just contained as a legion force. They'd probably be spread a little thin, doing what they do, and rapidly redeploying to assess threats. So, anyways, that's the Khan. He's a pretty cool Primarch. His styling is pretty unique, right, in terms of the art and the way his armor is and his war gear and everything. I don't care how the fluff goes. He rode on top of a rhino during the Horus Heresy on the Siege of Terra, and that's awesome. And anyways, rhino transport, not the creature. And yeah, I do believe that this Primarch is somebody that would be really cool to learn more about. Him and his legion really aren't my personal style. I've never had a wanting to collect White Scars ever, but I do appreciate their lightning strikes. And it's not just on bikes. They're lightning fighters. They do plenty of stuff. They've always been depicted as a mixed force of ground troops and bikers and stuff like that. So, yeah. Anyways, the Khan, pretty cool. Primarch, him and his legion would definitely be the pioneers, the border patrol, if you will, at large for most of their actions. Splitting off and redeploying to deal with any serious insurrectionists threat that needed them, or at the behest of the Emperor, probably delivered by another Primarch to say, dude, come on, let's go. They kind of encourage them to show up sooner rather than later. Anyways, that's it for the Kagan. Share your thoughts on the White Scars Primarch. Do you know much about him? Is he one of your favorites? Would you like to see more about him? Share it in the comment section below. And until next time, take it easy.